Final Fantasy is one of the longest running RPG series and probably just one of the longest running video game series of any genre. It's taken many forms over the years, from traditional turn-based battles to the more action-focused titles. The aspect that I'd like to focus on today though is the trophies, or achievements if you prefer, it's the same thing. Specifically what the rarest of these little rushes of dopamine are in every single Final Fantasy game that has achievements/trophies. Before starting though, some things to note. First, I'm going to primarily be looking at PlayStation trophies, but when a game has achievements on other platforms and not on PlayStation, we will look at them too, in the order of priority going PlayStation, then Xbox, and then Steam. Second thing to note is that I will not be looking at any mobile exclusive games, even though they may have achievements, simply because I don't want to. If it has a PC port though with achievements, I will have to talk about it. Third, Xbox shows 2 decimal places while PlayStation and Steam only show the 1, so it's easier for those platforms to have a tied rarest, but when that happens I will refer to third-party sites such as PSN profiles or True Achievements, and their tracked percentage to ensure that we have one definitive rarest per game. Fourth, normally I go by the date in which the game's got achievements for the order of the list, but for this one it makes way more sense to just go up in the numbers and then put the spin-offs with their most associated game, or when they released if they aren't associated with any particular numbered title. Fifth, if a game is on multiple platforms, for example PS4 and PS5, I will look at the one with the higher player count according to third-party sites. The only exception for this is if a game got additional trophies in a later release, in which case I will use that version. So as an example, I'm looking at the PS5 version of FF7 Remake, which has intergrade trophies in it, even though the PS4 version has more players. Finally, I've not played all these games, especially considering some are delisted now, so I apologise if anything is slightly wrong. I will do my best to ensure that doesn't happen though. With all that said, let's get into this, starting with Final Fantasy. Field Research Professional, 35.9%. I'm going to tell you right now, get used to hearing Field Research Professional. What you need for this trophy is to complete the Bestiary. Bestiary? Never heard that word out loud before. Just googled it, it's apparently Bestiary. There are 128 enemies that you need to defeat, which includes bosses. Nothing is missable in this game. The War Mech is the closest thing this game has to a secret boss, and it's tough as you'd expect, and must also be defeated for the trophy. As long as you don't turn off encounters, this shouldn't pose too difficult a challenge, which I think is reflected in the high percentage, especially compared to some of the later games we will get to. Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. His name is Sid Tonberry, 1.4%. This trophy comes from the Wanderer of the Rift DLC for this game. Now first off, everywhere I'm reading says you need to do all the DLC content on the hardest difficulty available, which seems insane to me and likely put people off and is a reason this trophy is so rare. I should probably say what this trophy is at some point, huh? You need to max out the Tonberry Blacksmith's affinity. How you do this is by summoning both the Cactuar and the Tonberry, which can both only be summoned by flawless summon stones. You get these from defeating enemies or from chests, and obviously flawless summon stones are rarer than standard ones, but you probably figured that out already. If you're really lucky, it'll cost you 65 total. Hopefully not, but it's possible. Once having both of these, first off you give the Cactuar Arcanium crystals until eventually it'll give you a knife. Then you give the Tonberry Gil until you then give it the knife. Then talk to the Tonberry Blacksmith for this trophy. I would guess this is the rarest due to the random aspect of it, combined with how much of a resource dump these little side quests are, and the higher difficulty of the DLC in general. Final Fantasy II. Field Research Professional, 32.4%. Much like FF1, this needs you to complete the Bestiary, and much like FF1, there are 128 enemies you need to defeat. Unlike FF1 though, there are actually some missable enemies this time. Certain enemies need to be defeated before a certain part in the story, or in a one-time visit dungeon that you can't return to. From research, there are 12 of these, so take extra care to get those ones done, but otherwise it's much the same advice as the first game. Final Fantasy III. Field Research Professional, 30.8%. Do I need to tell you what this one is for? It's bestiary again. You know it is. This time there is 225 enemies for you to defeat. Once again, there are potentially missable enemies for the same reasons as FF2, one-time visit dungeons and story events making you lose access to some areas and enemies. I didn't mention this earlier because I thought it was kind of obvious, but I am running out of ways to keep these unique. But some enemies are in optional dungeons. They're not missable, but you won't get them if you just follow the story. Final Fantasy III 3D Remake. Jack of all trades, 2.5%. Totally forgot about these remakes of the early games, but they're on Steam, so they count. For this achievement, you need to hit level 99 with every job in the game for every character. First off, the saying is jack of all trades but master of none, but this achievement literally needs you to master all of them. Didn't think that one through, did you, Square? Anyway, this will likely take ages, but it's just a case of grinding battles and making sure you switch out jobs when one hits 99. Watch that show that you've been meaning to watch for years while doing this. I know you have one, we all do. Final Fantasy IV, Field Research Professional, 25.5%. You know the drill, defeat all the enemies. The game has 197 enemies for you to defeat. There's some missable in temporary dungeons, so make sure you defeat everything in them before progressing. Other than that, you could save it for post-game, though you will get a fair few just going through the game with all the battles you should be getting into. Final Fantasy IV 3D Remake, Know It All, 1.8%. Oh, for the love of... It's the same thing. Complete the bestiary. Same advice as for the Pixel Remaster. But some different things for this one is that you can't complete the bestiary on your first run, as in this version, you need to defeat the super bosses, which are only available in New Game Plus, and one of these needs you to steal an item from the final boss. So you can't even just play a little bit of the game again, you gotta go the whole way through. Just one of those little differences between the 2D and 3D versions of the game. Final Fantasy IV The After Years, Beastmaster, 3.2%. Can we all just agree to do all the bestiaries after this just for the sake of the next person who does a video like this? Cheers. As you've guessed, this is once again for 100%ing the bestiary. For those that don't know, After Years is a kind of sequel to FF4. Why they didn't call it FF4-2, I have no idea. This game is sort of divided into episodes, with some enemies only appearing in certain ones, so quite a lot could potentially be missable. This seems even more than other games like one that having a checklist open to mark off enemies would be a good idea for. Otherwise, it's very similar to the other 3D remakes, gameplay wise at least. Can you tell I've run out of things to say about completing the bestiary? Final Fantasy V, Field Research Professional, 20.1%. Take a guess. No, really, I want you to take a guess right now. This game has 302 enemies for you to defeat, and yes, some are missable and some are Gilgamesh. Yeah, Gilgamesh has multiple entries in the bestiary, with some of the later ones being missable if you kill him or a later boss too quickly. That's at least an interesting way of messing up the trophy instead of just progressing through a dungeon too quick. I did read that bestiary progress carries across playthroughs, so that'll at least make this somewhat easier. Other than that, everything I've said previously still applies here in terms of just double checking before progressing. I will quickly mention that there was an old version of FF5 on Steam with different achievements, but that's delisted now, so I didn't want to focus it over the available version, but the rarest for that was for opening all treasure chests with 2.8%. Collection of Saga Final Fantasy Legend, Saga Veteran, 8.8%. So I'm not entirely sure that I should include this game on the list. From research, it doesn't seem like it has much of anything to do with Final Fantasy and is instead part of the Saga series, which I'm aware of but haven't played any of. But I decided to include it basically just because it has Final Fantasy in the title, and I'd rather include it when I didn't need to than leave it off when it should have been included. The achievement is for completing all 3 games in this collection of Game Boy games. I'm not going to give tips for all the games because I'm sure there's more in-depth guides if you need them than what I can provide you. From research, the games seem to be around 10 to 20 hours long each, which isn't that long, right? For RPGs, that's pretty short. Good thing there's 3 games in this collection. Final Fantasy VI, Legendary Treasure Hunter, 10.7%. Wait, that's not Field Research Professional, what gives? No, FF6 bucks the Pixel Remaster trend and has a different rarest, narrowly, it was by 0.1%. This one needs you to collect all 214 treasure chests in the game. Unfortunately for me, this means I have exactly the same advice to say. Some areas are one-time visit or you lose access to after story events, which means missable treasure chests. I guess it's not quite as bad as the enemies because you can actually see the chests on the overworld when compared to enemies, which are just random battles mostly. Much like FF5, there's also a delisted version of FF6 on Steam, with the rarest achievement in that version being for discovering all the hidden Blitz commands with 2.0%. With this though, we're out of the pixel remasters, so here's hoping we get a bit more variety going forward. Final Fantasy VII, Best Bromance, 7.8%. Poor Barrett, man. There's trophies for all the super bosses or leveling to 99, but the thing that the least amount of people have done is gone on a golden saucer date with Barrett. How this works is that throughout the game you'll make dialogue choices, and these choices will affect a hidden point system, and whichever of the 4 characters, Tifa, Aerith, Yuffie or Barrett, is the highest will be the one that Cloud hangs out with at the gold saucer quite a ways into the game. I'm not going to go through every choice here, there are guides if you need them on what to select at every point, but yeah, that aside, I do get why this is the rarest. If you do only one playthrough, I feel like the game is set up so that you're more likely to end up getting either Tifa or Aerith for this section. And there's only a few easily missable trophies in the first place, this being one of them. Genuinely curious how many people watching ended up with the Barrett date on their first run, I would love to know. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Ultimate Weapon 2.0, 1.8%. As you might expect, this is in the Intermission DLC. It's not the one you're probably expecting though. Yeah, I was expecting Vice 2. No, this is for defeating the Pride and Joy prototype in episode Yuffie. This sim has you face 3 fights, Bahamut, Ramuh, and the prototype. I don't remember struggling with this, but the thing to note with this and pretty much every endgame intended combat simulation is that you have to play on hard mode, which makes it so you can't use items. I don't think any of the enemies you fight here are any different to the base game version, so if you manage that, I guess the only thing stopping you from doing this is getting used to Yuffie's playstyle. I would guess that this is the reason why it's rarer than Vice. That one you face in the main game with a likely more familiar combat style with Cloud and the gang. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, 7-star hotel, 2.3%. This trophy needs you to collect all 88 items for Johnny. These can be got in a lot of ways, you have to do most things for this trophy. Some are hidden around the maps, and most of them need you to beat the highest level of all the minigames. I'm not going to go through all the minigames here. Most aren't too bad in my opinion, I only really struggled with the Cactuar one. You also need to do all of Chadley's virtual battles, which are easily the hardest part of the game. There's solo battles for each of the characters, which can be difficult, especially if you avoid certain characters because you aren't very good at them. I get it, it happens, right? All the legendary battles are a series of 10 battles, and very few of these are free wins. The hardest is Bonds of Friendship, where you end up teaming with, spoiler warning, Zack. You have 10 brutal rounds against the summons, ending with Odin, who in case you weren't aware or forgot, can insta-kill you if you take too long, which is very fair and not frustrating at all. I don't want this segment to get super long because boy could it, so if you would like a more thorough look at this trophy and the whole platinum for this game, I made a video on that which you can watch after this one. Please do, I had a lot of fun making that one back in the day. Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Reunion, good match for Aerith, 7.8%. If you've gone for the trophies in this game, you'll know that a good amount of them are missable. The game's not that long, so it's not the end of the world, but boy chapter select would be nice. This one needs you to be told by Bruno in chapter 4 that you're a good match for Aerith. How you actually go about doing this though is not as simple as holding the door for her or pulling out a chair. You need the godlike speed rating at the materia gathering game, as well as making 3 perfect perfumes in a row at the perfume making minigame. Other than that, it's just choosing correct dialogue options. First off, while searching for Bruno, you need to talk to all the store owners. You also need to keep waiting for the little girl to come back. Just keep waiting. I know it seems like a Nintendo game where it's a choice but not an actual choice, but you need to keep waiting. Likewise, keep giving the boy potions until it won't let you anymore, and choose to buy the medicine yourself after finding Bruno. Doing all this will net you the trophy at the end of this segment. Maybe keep a save in case you mess up or forget a step. Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. Conquer Midgar Falls B100, 1.6%. Had no idea this was on Steam. Thought it was only mobile, but it's not. What this achievement needs you to do is clear Midgar Falls Floor 100. What this mode seems to be is a series of fights that get harder and harder as you progress. As one of the latest floors, I assume, I don't play this game, naturally you'll need high level characters and gear and know how to build characters for this game. It's not something you'll be able to just start playing and do. That's not to mention you'll need to get through the first 99 floors first, with some of them being difficult in their own right. Floor 100 is this boss fight against Genova Nucleus. Because of the nature of this game, I can't really give concrete advice. There are guides online, but if you don't have what they say to have, you've got to find a replacement, and to be honest, you're better off looking at specialist sites and YouTubers rather than me attempting to figure out all this game's systems right now. Final Fantasy VIII. 10,000 kills, 1.4%. To clarify, this is the original non-remastered version that's on Steam. It wasn't delisted like older versions of previous games, it's still there now. The remastered version removed some achievements, so as per my rules, I went with the version with the most achievements. This is fairly self-explanatory with what you need to do though: get 10,000 kills. From reading online, people say this will take between 14 to 16 hours roughly of dedicated grinding, which, yeah, that's a long time. I would assume doing this as late as possible so you've got all the kills you possibly could from other achievements and whatnot would be best, but honestly this is such a high number that in the grand scheme it probably wouldn't have that much of an impact. Use the built-in speed up to reduce the time as much as possible, and please watch a show or a movie or something. Don't just stare at the enemy farming, and get up to stretch your legs. Maybe do this on a treadmill. I'm sure you could set that up. In case you were wondering, the rarest for the remaster was for collecting all Timber Maniacs magazines at a much higher 10.5%. Final Fantasy IX. Bloodlust, 1.4%. Hey, that's not jump rope. I was totally expecting it to be the 1000 jump ropes, but nope, apparently not. If I had to guess why that's not the rarest, it would be because you can do that quite early, and you know there's at least a few people that would definitely be like, I refuse to progress until I get this. I can totally see that. Anyway, the actual rarest is for defeating 10,000 enemies again. As you might expect, this will take a while and should be the last thing you attempt to do to reduce the grind as much as possible. As for ways to make it faster, let's assume that you're okay with using the boosters like speed up and 9999 damage. For grinding this at least, not for the whole game, just for the grind. Also, try and farm enemies in areas that have a higher amount of enemies per battle, like the Forgotten Continent as an example. Other than that, put on a TV show or something. Yeah? This is one of those, you know it is. Final Fantasy X. Perfect Sphere Master, 3.0%. This trophy needs you to complete the sphere grid for every single character. This is extremely time consuming. Now, full disclosure, I haven't done this, so you'll probably want to find a more in-depth explanation for this, but I will do my best. From research, the most common strat seems to be the Don Tomberry strategy. How this seems to work is by first setting yourself with overdrive to AP, and then getting Don Tomberry to counter you with Karma, which does 100 times the amount of enemies a character has defeated. So naturally you want this number to be as high as possible to convert it into AP for the sphere grid. I have grossly oversimplified that and not talked about all the setup required, but like I said, if you want more concrete instructions, there are better people for that. This gives everyone a lot, and I mean a lot, of sphere levels. After that though, you still need to fill in all the nodes, which takes time on its own, seeing as how you'll probably also need to grind out spheres to fill the nodes for every character. This honestly seems like it'll take an age with all the different steps, even with the Tomberry method, and I'm not looking forward to eventually getting to it. Final Fantasy X-2. Tomberry's Treasure, 2.9%. So this isn't actually part of FF10-2, but instead FF10-2 Last Mission, which I had no idea existed, but its trophies are part of the 10-2 list, so here we are. From looking at it, it seems to be some kind of dungeon crawler, kind of like a mystery dungeon game, which is wild to have a completely different kind of game attached to this collection. Basically, the game is you climbing the 80 floors of this tower. The rarest trophy though is finding the treasure in the Tomberry's area. So the steps to reach the Tomberry's room seem to me incredibly convoluted, but probably make more sense visually than as text. It seems to me like you need to go to specific secret rooms to then reach the Tomberry's room. You can take secret and save folios to sort of cheese this to ensure you end up in the right rooms. As an example, if you're in the wrong room, you reload the save and try again. I really do recommend looking at a guide for more detail if you need it. Eventually you'll come across a gold stone which will take you to the Tomberry room, where you need to defeat 4 Mega Tomberries and then pick up the item left behind for the trophy. I see how this is the rarest. To me, it seems convoluted, plus the fact that it's not even in the main FF10-2 game is likely another factor making it the rarest. Final Fantasy XI. Gold Ballistar, 3.39%. Now, I had no idea FF11 was on the Xbox 360. Thought it was PC only, but no. It's here and has achievements. This is the first Final Fantasy MMO, and it is shut down now, at least officially. I have no idea if there's fan servers or anything, but on Xbox 360, it's done and delisted. This achievement needs you to get the title of the same name. You get this from the Ballista PvP mode. Specifically, you need to be the highest scorer of any particular job. Score is counted for the last 10 games from what I can tell. But this wasn't just a case of doing it whenever you wanted. From what I can tell, the mode opened at set times, so if you miss a game for whatever reason, you have to wait for the next one and get a 0 for the game you missed, I guess. There's also the fact that you needed 6 people for a match to start, and from research this mode was underplayed, especially towards the end. I guess this would theoretically make boosting easier? Once you got the title and an in-game item for Gold Ballista though, you don't get the achievement right away. You have to talk to the title bard while still having the item to then get the achievement. Did I mention that that item only lasts a week, so I wonder if there's anyone that did the requirements but didn't do this last step and missed out on the achievement because of that. There's gotta be at least one person, right? Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, Artifact Collector, 2.4%. At a glance, to those unfamiliar with the game, this doesn't seem that bad. There's 79 artifacts in the game, which isn't a huge amount when compared to similar games' amount of items. Every dungeon you can get up to a total of 8 artifacts, so with that in mind, this really shouldn't take too long, right? Wrong. You see, despite being able to get 8 artifacts in the dungeon, you can actually only take 1 out with you to keep permanently. This means you will need to do 79 total dungeons, which is a lot more than you'll likely need to do for every other trophy in the game. You can abuse the autosave to try and get the artifacts you want, so if the chest doesn't have what you want, you can close the game and then reload from the start of the room where the game autosaved and re-roll the chests. Also, no artifact is missable, it just seems to be a case of taking blimmin' ages. Final Fantasy XII, The Zodiac Age, Scrivener, 3.2%. No man, I thought we were done with this. This is for, say it with me, completing the bestiary. There's 396 things to defeat unless my math is wrong, and this is split into different categories such as bosses, marks, normal enemies, among others. None of these are missable from what I can tell. Not only can you go to previous areas pretty easily, but a lot of these enemies are also in the trial mode, which is another way of finding them, which is always good. For real this time though, this is the last time I have to talk about the bestiary, and I am truly grateful for that. Crystal Defenders, 4-star, Strategist, 12.6%. This is an interesting one in that I can't see the Final Fantasy name on it anywhere. Interesting way to market a spin-off, but we'll see how it pans out. This is a tower defense style game. For this trophy you need a total of 100,000 points lifetime. Now there seems to be a bit of confusion regarding how this is counted. I found people saying that it adds your highest score for every map, while others say it's the total of every score you ever get. If it's the former, then since there's 12 maps on the game, you would need an average of 8,333 points per level. If it's the latter, then it's just a case of replaying until you get it. You could just replay one map over and over again if this is the case as well. Doesn't seem like a hard game to get all the trophies in. Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon, Everybody, 1.4%. I'ma be real with you, I had no clue Mystery Dungeon was its own thing and not just a Pokemon spin-off, but I like those games. So that with more series sounds like a grand old time to me. This trophy needs you to befriend all buddies in the game, of which there are 144. All characters come from the story dungeons. Monsters you get from BP, which you get from just defeating enemies. The final category is Extra, and this is the hardest section by far. You need to play and replay the hardest dungeons multiple times in order to get guys like Omega, for example, which is a very Omega thing to do. Various guides say this platinum can easily take over 100 hours, which is more than I was expecting from a mystery dungeon game, I'll be honest, but that's just based off the Pokemon ones. Final Fantasy XIII, Treasure Hunter, 2.3%. One of the more divisive Final Fantasy games. This trophy needs you to obtain every weapon and accessory in the game. This is simple to explain, but decidedly less simple to pull off. Altogether, there are 231 weapons and accessories you need to find or buy. Now, finding the locations of everything is a simple search away, and from what I can tell, as long as you don't sell anything, nothing is permanently missable. But some items cannot be gotten again if you do sell them. Specifically, the rings seem to be the culprit for this. However, that will only give you, let's say, about half the stuff you need. This is because the majority can be upgraded at least once. This then changes the game from searching for the items to farming a large number of upgrading materials or grinding money so you can buy materials from the overpriced shop. Up to you. Though it'll probably be a lot quicker to get the drops from enemies unless you're horrendously unlucky. Some materials do need to be bought though, but thankfully they're the less expensive ones like Urantite. A good enemy to grind for Gil is probably the Adamantoise, especially considering they can also drop the rarest upgrade material, of which you will need 6, one for every character. Overall, a big old grind, and it bears repeating, check that you haven't screwed yourself before starting that grind. Imagine getting to the end and then realizing you can't actually get the trophy. Sounds like a nightmare. Final Fantasy XIII 2. Anomalous, 12%. For the sequel, they put a big emphasis on time travel, which is always very hit or miss. For this trophy, you need to get all alternate paradox endings in the game. To get these, you must first beat the game normally to get the paradox scope, which lets you trigger all these other endings. How these tend to work is that the scope either lets you do different live triggers to change the course of the story, or for some of them you need to face an even stronger version of the boss and get an ending that way. I'm not going to go over all the exact changes because, to be honest, that seems a bit too unnecessarily spoilery for the topic of this video. You also need the secret ending, which needs you to get all 160 fragments. These are given through the story, the side missions, and other activities you can do throughout the game. Once again, not going to list them all here. If you need specifics, you know that you can find guides. If it weren't for the secret ending needing all fragments and you just need to get the main paradox endings, I think there's a good chance this one might not have been the rarest, but that is not the world we live in. Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy XIII, Expert Shieldsmith, 8.2%. Always wondered why they never called it 13.3. Just have Lightning Returns be the subtitle, yeah? Then again, this is the same company that gave us 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, so maybe I shouldn't question it. This trophy needs you to upgrade a shield 30 times. First off, you need to be in New Game Plus to do this, so you have to have beaten the game once. Other than that though, it's fairly simple. You can use the basic material that you get from all the shops. Make sure you only upgrade one step at a time, because if you upgrade multiple steps, it only counts as one. But if you do one step, back out, and then do the next step, that's 2. You're following me. Do this 30 times for the trophy. Final Fantasy Type 0 HD. A Lonely Battle, 5%. This is far too easy to be the rarest, it's actually baffling. To get this, you need to beat a mission with only 2 characters. Yes, this is rarer than beating a mission with only 1 character. I don't get it either. You can replay the first mission to do this incredibly quickly without any challenge really. Sorry for the shorter section, but there's not a lot to talk about. Go do it now, please, thank you. Final Fantasy XIV. An Adventurer's Life, 5.9% for PS3 and 4, and Palace Palace, 0.1% on PS5. So you may notice that I gave 2 separate rarists, and that's because despite being the same game, the PS3 and 4 version and the PS5 version have completely separate lists. It's not a case of the later version adding more, the list is just completely different. Because of this, I decided to give you both, and it's not even Christmas. First up, An Adventurer's Life for the PS4 needs you to complete 1000 Lev quests, which from what I can tell are repeatable quests. You get 3 every 12 hours, so this has got everyone's favourite thing, time gating. There might be really quick quests to do, but considering the real world time gate, it won't really matter. I would quickly like to say I know this is an MMO, so if I say something that has been made outdated, I apologize. I know a lot of people play this game who would be better informed than me. The PS5 rarest, Palace Palace, needs you to beat all 200 floors of the Palace of the Dead solo. How this works is you start at level 1 regardless, so level grinding beforehand is useless and instead getting better gear will help. Looking at what people were saying, Warrior or Machinist seemed to be the way to go, with Red Mage also coming up a fair amount. I don't play this game, so I am completely unqualified to give a guide or anything like that. You can find that yourself. Being an MMO, it's likely you aren't playing this exclusively for the trophies or achievements anyway, and would have at least some idea what you're doing at this point. Now I sit and wait for the "actually I only play for the achievements" comments to come in. It has absolutely happened before, and it will happen again. Final Fantasy XV. Return of the Founder King, 0.1%. This comes to us from the Episode Arden DLC, and from the walls of text explaining it I found, I'm starting to see why it's the rarest. For this, you need to beat Episode Arden with an A+ rank. How this works is that your overall grade is determined by 9 categories, and if you drop more than 2 grades at all, you won't get an A+. So you either need 8 A+s and a B, or 7 A+s and 2 A's. The 9 categories are total score. This is determined by a combination of battle score and rampage score for destroying stuff throughout the city. For an A+, you need 1.5 million. Max combo. Easy to do after maxing your Phantasm bar. A+ is 400. Number of enemies defeated, 150 for A+. Demonifications, 100 for A+. You also get a trophy for getting that many, so you can track it like that on a first run through. Sectors controlled, you need to destroy the emitters throughout the city, all 7 are needed for an A+. Undying states, 0 needed for an A+, just don't die. Damage taken, 15,000 or under for an A+. This is probably the hardest of these categories. You can make it a bit safer by getting items to reduce the amount of damage taken, but really this is a skill check. Strategies, these are battle specific objectives. There's 4 of these and you need to do all 4 for an A+. And finally, battle time, under 50 minutes for an A+. Luckily, this is only time in battle, so wandering the city you can take as long as you want. As you can see, this is a lot, but what you can do to make this easier is save after you think you've done a good section, and then if you screw up and take too long or too much damage, you can reload the save to try and do that segment again without needing to retry the whole campaign. Otherwise, it's a case of practice and have a planned route and just being good. You'll get there eventually. Final Fantasy 15 multiplayer comrades. Golden Nester, 0.9%. Yeah, comrades, the multiplayer part of Final Fantasy 15 has a separate list, so for the purpose of this video, it's separate from the main game. Though after looking at it, there's also comrade stuff in the main game as well as a separate list, so I have no idea what's going on there. For this trophy, you need to defeat Kenny Crow. You unlock this battle by first defeating the Ardyn and Rarest battle, which is a challenge in itself. This is designed to be one of the harder battles in the game, but most people I found online were saying that it's not necessarily the hardest. I've never played this multiplayer mode. To be honest, the idea of Final Fantasy multiplayer is just kind of foreign to me, especially in a mainline game. There's naturally strategies for dodging and countering specific moves based on tells and whatnot, and this is also probably easier with people, assuming servers are still up. I think they are, but googling this actually isn't helpful, as some places say they're shut down, but there's still also people playing apparently. But yeah, hard fight. You might have to do it solo now as well. Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition HD. Self-mastered, 16.2%. It's like FF15, but smaller. This is a port of a mobile remake? We'll go with remake. Sure, we'll go with remake of Final Fantasy 15. This trophy needs you to get all 65 skill nodes. This costs AP, and you get AP when you gain experience. From research, you should have enough around level 70. This seems to just be a case of grinding out missions until you have enough. There also seems to be a strat in Chapter 6 revolving around collecting cactars, saving, and then resetting the chapter and doing it again to quickly get AP with no battles. Of course, do everything you need to do before starting the grind to reduce the amount you need to do. A King's Tale, Final Fantasy 15, Sweet Dreams, 1.3%. This list is making me realise that FF15 had a lot more spin-offs than I realised. This game is a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up similar to like Streets of Rage, I guess. What this trophy needs you to do is complete all the special challenges for Dream Battles. First off, Dream Battles are unlocked after finishing the main story, and there are 25 of them. The challenges are little tasks you have to complete within each battle. For example, take no damage or use certain moves, little things like that. None of these are especially challenging and can be gotten within a few attempts if not first try. The game is pretty short anyway, and even getting all the trophies doesn't take that much longer, especially considering all the long RPGs on this list. Monster of the Deep, Final Fantasy 15. Caught 'em all, 3.9%. Hey guys, you like fishing? Well, I sure hope you do. Along with spending hundreds of quid on a headset. So yeah, this is a VR fishing game. This trophy needs you to catch every fish in the game. There are 110 spread across 6 different areas. Some fish require specific lures. You can kind of track the ones you're missing in game. Might need to compare it to a list online, which is admittedly an extra step as you can't just turn your head to another monitor as you have to peel the contraption off your head first. There's also weather conditions which affect which fish are available. Catch fish and buy better gear to catch more fish. It's a simple loop, but effective. World of Final Fantasy Maxima, Speedster, 1.04%. In the interest of clarity, this is the Xbox versions list because it released as the Maxima version, which, while existing on other platforms, only added new achievements for the Xbox for some reason. What this one needs you to do is clear all the time trials in the Colosseum. There's 109 of these, which, yes, sounds like a lot, but a lot of them can be done with the same strategy. I'm not going to go through all of them for this reason and instead give more general advice. First off, do this when you're a higher level. I think that goes without saying. Bigger number means less time spent. Second off, most regular enemies are weak to death, so getting a death searcher will make this easier. Other than that, take advantage of enemies' weaknesses and make good use of your time. Looking online, I see that Behemonster's Revenge Blaster ability is also very good due to the high amounts of damage it can do if used correctly. There's some consecutive battles and boss fights as you'd expect, and once again, I am not going to go through all of them. If you're struggling with anything specifically, I'm sure you can find a video or something where people post their best times that you can copy their builds for. Fortune Street, Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy 30th Anniversary. Online 30 wins, 4.5%. Every game means every game. Fortune Street is kind of like Monopoly, and this one has Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy characters and was only released in Japan. There was one for the Wii with Mario in it that I think was localized, but that's not important for this video. This trophy needs you to win 30 online multiplayer games. I don't know how long each game is, but going off Monopoly, this will probably take a while. Apparently there's a free demo that can connect and play multiplayer with people that have the main game, which would make boosting a lot easier as anyone with the console can just download the demo, provided they make a Japanese PS account, but that's not hard to do. Not a lot more to say, the game doesn't track, so manually count yourself and keep playing until you win 30 and the trophy pops. Mobius Final Fantasy. Final chapter complete, 2.4%. Gonna be real, I had no idea what this game was before coming into this video. It's shut down and delisted now, so this will forever be the rarest achievement. This game is a free-to-play mobile game that was ported to Steam, and that's why it's on this list. All the achievements are either for clearing or completing the game's chapters. Because of this, it naturally makes a lot of sense for the rarest achievement to be for 100% completing the final chapter. That's before even considering that the game obviously released episodically, so people probably dropped off before the final chapter was even released. I'm not one to complain about a game just because it was free to play, so I'd be really curious to hear from people who played this just to see how it was. Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. The Power of the Combo, 1.5%. The Final Fantasy fighting game, pretty unique. Haven't played this one, but I like the PSP ones. This trophy needs you to get 3 A++ grades in ranked matches while playing as Exdeath. There's one of these trophies for every character, but Exdeath was the rarest, implying that he is the least popular character in this game. To get an A+ grade, you need a total of 1,900 points, and also, what's not mentioned in the description is that you actually have to win the match as well. The grading seems to be determined by a few things, such as speed of victory, damage you yourself deal, staying alive, and so on. Basically, just play well. I'm unsure about how easy it is to boost this with people, but there is a method to ensure you fight CPUs by changing the MTU settings in your network settings on your console. I have no idea what that means, but hey, any method is a good method to make this easier. Let's give Exdeath some love and get him out of the rarest, why not? Theatrhythm Final Bar Line. Endless Ruler, 14.7%. The one and only rhythm game on this list. This trophy needs you to clear 20 songs in a row in Endless Mode. You unlock Endless Mode after beating the story, and because you're a smart person who's probably subscribed, you can figure out what this is. You also need to complete the quest associated with the songs as well. This can be clearing with a certain amount of HP, or clearing with a certain character, or some other small task. I don't have a lot to add though, it's a rhythm game, hopefully you have rhythm and can jam out to the music as you go. Probably do this after unlocking all the characters as well, as apparently the quests can ask for characters you haven't unlocked yet, which is a bit unfair, but it's not that big a deal. Probably that's why this is the rarest, people just saving it for last. Final Fantasy 16, Ocasio Calva, 1.4%. Our final trophy for today comes to us from the Rising Tide DLC for Final Fantasy 16. This one needs you to clear the Kairos Gate, which you unlock after beating the DLC and getting the final icon power set. In this mode, you begin with the same equipment and level and whatnot regardless of what you had going in, so it's basically separate from any level grinding and whatnot you can do in the main game. What this is simple. You have 20 floors of battles and you get upgrade points and gear as you progress to make the later floors easier. The actual combat is not that different to the rest of the game. You still get the timely accessories if you would like, which makes the combat significantly easier, the same way they do in the main game. Kind of surprised this is rarer than any of the Final Fantasy difficulty trophies, but I guess people just didn't want to play this mode. A single run can take a while, so maybe that is why. And that is all of them. How many of these were what you were expecting and how many were actually surprising? Let me know that and how many of these you've got and whatever else in the comments. And while you're down there, why not like and subscribe if you liked it? It's free, helps me out, and gives you easier access to my videos, both old and new. I've done this same format for other series, so check them out as well. Thank you for watching. For now though, I'm off, hunt them tropes, and I will see you next time.